We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Sunday morning edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We are on day 8 without producer Matt. He is still in Nashville without power. So one, we're all doing the best that we can. Certainly, I know he is as well. 2, just drop. The chat is already humming, but can you hear me okay? Can you see me okay? Because I'll tell you what, we got ourselves a monster show here on a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, depending on where you are. As mentioned, no producer Matt, so the graphics, the visuals won't be quite what they are, but we're hoping to get him back soon. What is on the docket for today? I think you know. Mark Pope, Kentucky, get the last laugh. They go to Bud Walton Arena. 85-77 is the final score. What does it mean for Kentucky? What does it mean for their season? Also, John Calipari. Did John Calipari go do John Calipari things again? We will discuss that. The refs, there's a lot to discuss there. Then I'll tell you, I really think the Kansas story is becoming fascinating. Kansas with the 5th straight win, all as Darryn Peterson. Like, what the heck is going on there? A lot to dive into. Arizona dominates. UConn dominates. Just a monster Saturday in college sports. By the way, we actually have a pretty busy Sunday, so we'll try to get out of here in an hour. Alabama and Florida are playing in a little bit, and I will come back later and drop my top 10 going into the week. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. Make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We are about 400 subscribers away from 70,000. So if you have a friend, tag them, share the page. We're going to be talking a lot of college hoops between now and really late May as the portal winds down. So make sure you're subscribed. Also, Apple, Spotify, if you're listening there, leave a 5-star review, leave a rating. It really does help with what we're doing. You know what else helps? Our friends and the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres Pod. You already know I'm talking about SeatGeek, okay? So SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. And guess what? It's that time of year. College hoops is full speed ahead. And if you need tickets to any game to watch your team, you're going to want to go ahead and check out SeatGeek, okay? So SeatGeek, America's #1 ticketing app. Every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10, a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means maybe stay away. But what I really love about SeatGeek is pretty straightforward. They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres, it gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Any ticket, any concert, any show. Worth noting, it's not just college basketball. If you want to go to an NHL game, an NBA game, you want to go to a concert, a show, if SeatGeek has tickets, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. With that said, it is a busy Sunday in the world of sports. There is no more time to waste, so let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, again, no producer Matt, so visually we aren't quite where we want to be, but you know what the topic is. It is Kentucky versus Calipari Part 2. You know the deal. You know what's at stake, and you know last year John Calipari got the last laugh going into Rupp Arena with a team that was 1-6 at SEC play. Arkansas gets the win a year ago. It really spurs a great second half for them on the way to the Sweet 16. Well, this year it was Mark Pope and the Wildcats who were going into this game off of the loss to Vanderbilt. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. You had guys like me questioning what was going on with this team. Why could they not come out and play at their best? Well, there was no issue on Saturday because Kentucky gets the win. Final score 85-77. And with it, people, I just got one question for you, baby. That's right. I'm going to do it. It's been a long time since I've asked the question, but do you have hope in Mark Pope? Do you have hope in Mark Pope? Get your Hope in Pope t-shirts, Aaron Torres, online.com/shop. And oh, by the way, you can, of course, just use that QR code. Fancy new technology that we have here. So let's go ahead and dive into this game. Like I said, final score, Kentucky gets the win, 85-77. And, let me start by saying this. First of all, the only thing that sucked about this game, the refs absolutely hijacked it. And listen, there's a great game to discuss, impact, stakes, everything. But we have to discuss the refs because it was an absolute abomination. And they absolutely took away from what was an absolutely awesome game and awesome effort, from both teams, even though obviously one is more disappointing than the other. In total, 46 fouls called in this game, 56 total free throws, 6 technical fouls, including 3 on the Kentucky Wildcats within a 38-second span. It was some of the most abominable officiating that I have ever seen. As a matter of fact, I put out a tweet during the game that picked up some traction. I, for a long time, have been an advocate. If we are going to send 18-year-old basketball or football players to the podium after a game to answer questions from the media, we should do the same from the refs. Tweeted this out. I've said for years, refs should meet with the media after games, just like players and coaches do. Today is the reason why. There may be a reason for the refs calling 3 technical fouls on Kentucky in 38 seconds, but if there is, we as a viewing public deserve to know why. So 3 technical fouls within 38 seconds. Listen, whenever you know the name of a referee, that is never a good thing. Doug Shows, he made it about him. It was an abomination. It was embarrassing. But let me also say this. The referees are not the reason that Kentucky won the game. They are not the reason that Kentucky lost or that Arkansas lost the game. And in many ways, I think the referees may have opened up a side of Kentucky that we simply either have not seen or didn't know existed. Okay, so what do I mean by this? First of all, as far as the game is concerned, let's obviously credit Kentucky. Let's credit Mark Pope for coming out clearly the best start that they've had, certainly against an impact or meaningful opponent over the course of the season. But more importantly, it was after those 3 technicals that I really felt like Kentucky got their mojo, right? They get up early in the game. They're in control by as many as 13 points in the first half. It was by far their biggest first half lead in any game against a Power 5 competition this season. Then Arkansas makes their run. Then you have the Brandon Garrison technical. Okay, maybe you can explain that one away. But the Mo Diabate technical, I saw my buddy Rob Dowster, Field of 68, say it was the worst technical he's ever seen. I don't know if it's the worst, but it's in the short conversation. And then Mark Pope gets the technical because he's pissed off about the Mo Diabate technical. So you get the 3 technicals, but the question is, how are you going to respond? Are you going to curl up in a ball on the road? Billy Richmond has that monster dunk, and you sit there and say, oh, crap. You sit there and say, oh, boy, here we go. Arkansas is going to run away with this. Instead, the exact opposite happens. Kentucky, kind of gets tougher, gets meaner, and finds a way to use that as fuel and motivation the back half of the game. As a matter of fact, I thought Mark Pope had some very interesting comments about that exact phenomenon, was asked after the game about the technical fouls, and he basically said, look, you don't want the technicals, but I love how we use them to respond in this game. Here is Mark Pope talking about the 3 technical fouls for the Kentucky Wildcats in 38 seconds and what it meant for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so I would like to clean up all 3 of those technicals. I'd like to clean them up I'd like us to have just a tiny bit more discipline. But what I love about that stretch is the guys' fight and determination. And so even with the 3 techs happening back to back to back, I felt like it was coming from exactly the right place in our team, that we are searching for that core of like fight and like undaunted competitive spirit. And it just overflowed a tiny bit, but we felt right. We felt right. You know, the techs were after like really extraordinarily competitive plays. And so we definitely have to be a little more disciplined. But I actually, the gym felt good at that point. It felt like, man, these guys are here to fight. And so, yes, we can clean up a little bit, but I wouldn't trade the heart of it for anything. We just got to be just a tiny bit more disciplined.
That was Mark Pope after the game, basically saying, look, I don't love that we got the technicals, but they were after very competitive moments, and I loved the competitiveness of this team after the technicals happened. And to me, people, this is the story of this game, okay? Because listen, first of all, again, let's just say it as it is. Mark Pope had the team that was better prepared, better ready to go, and certainly executed better late in this game. And we're going to talk about the Arkansas perspective in half a second, so go ahead and stick around if you're an Arkansas fan or if you're a Kentucky fan that just wants to soak it all in, okay? But at the same time, what Mark Pope said is right. And what Mark Pope said, first of all, again, credit to him. His team was ready. They made more plays late. But what he said is actually the frustration that both I have had, and I don't want to speak for every Kentucky fan, but the frustration that I think virtually every Kentucky fan has had with this team. It's not just the win-loss record. It's not that this game happened this way or that game happened that way. I think some of the frustration is obviously with injuries, which is out of Mark Pope's control. But what has been the frustration of this Kentucky team, at least from my perspective, you can go back and listen. I've never criticized Mark Pope. Why didn't he run this out of bounds player? My biggest criticism is, why are you starting slow? And why have there been games where your team has quit this season? And I don't like to use the word quit, but I think it's accurate. They quit against Gonzaga. They quit against Michigan State. They did not show up ready to play at all against Vandy and then quit once they got down. That is the reality. That is what happened. But that also shows why what Mark Pope said on Saturday after the game is so important, is because not only did this team not quit, they showed the fight that they probably haven't shown enough this season. Now, I understand that they've come back from deficits, hostile environments at Tennessee. I don't know if you'd call LSU a hostile environment, but they came back from 17 points down at LSU, okay? But at the same time, I do think the word fight, the fact that this game, when you get those 3 technicals within an 38-second span, that game can go one of 2 directions. It can either be a resilience moment where it can either be one of 2, like I said. It can either be a moment where you sit there and say, it's not our night. The crowd is loud. Another loss. Let's get back to Rupp. We'll be okay. Whatever. This week stunk. Or you can say, not only are we not going to let it affect us in a negative way, but we're going to use this as fuel. They're trying to bully us. The refs have it out to get us, at least in this moment, and we're not going to take it. And we're not going to take the crap, and we're not going to take whatever. And as a matter of fact, we're going to fight and come back and do exactly what they needed to do, which is exactly what they did. And so with Kentucky, listen, I hate to keep being this glasses half full, glasses half empty guy, but I don't think anything that I have said in any specific moment has been overreactionary or too emotional. This team has been up. It has been down. There has been a middle ground. And now it's, are you going to use this to build momentum? Because listen, 14-7 going into Saturday, 15-7 overall is not the expectation of what this team was when many had them in the top 10. Many had them as a national championship or Final Four contender like I did. But you can look at it as one of two ways. You can look at it as they're 14-7, and that's not the standard. But here's the other thing. What we cannot deny now, first of all, they have a good resume. And so if they just do what they need to do, don't lose any really weird games, starting with Oklahoma this week at home, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament because they have actually a very good resume right now. You look across college basketball, some of these teams that had big wins in November and December, the wins have not held up, okay? But you look at Kentucky, the wins keep getting better. St. John's on a neutral. I don't know how many people are paying attention. St. John's is in second place in the Big East. They play UConn this week. They beat UConn. They're tied for first place in the Big East. Kentucky beat them. You won at Tennessee. Not sure how many people are paying attention to Tennessee, but Nate Ament is starting to play like Nate Ament we thought he was going to. They've won 4 straight, I believe 5 of 6, 6 of 7, something like that. That Tennessee win is going to get better over time. The Arkansas win. We're going to criticize John Calipari in 2 seconds, but Arkansas is going to be a top 25 team all season long, and that win at Arkansas is going to carry all weight all season. So the resume is actually pretty good. As we've said, there are a couple just weird stretches away from having a couple more wins. Easily could have beaten Carolina. Easily could have beaten Missouri. And it's not as bad as it seemed. But the thing is, can you use this as actual momentum? And can you bring the fight that you need to every single game? And then, oh, by the way, can you show up ready to play every single game as well? I thought it was interesting. Pope also addressed that before during the press conference. We're not going to play the whole press conference, but he basically said, look, we've been working with the staff. We've been working with the players. We've been changing up our routines. We're just trying to figure out, why are we starting so slow and how do we fix it? So it's a long season. It's a work in progress, but that's obviously part of this, right? Can you figure out a way to get things going in the right direction? And then, as importantly, if you start better and you don't need to overcome double-figure deficits every game, guess what? You can go through a bad 4 or 5 minute stretch like you did on Saturday and still win the game. So it's about starting better, and it's about having the resilience that you need to have. And like I said, if you can win at Arkansas, if you can win at Tennessee, you can win any game left on the schedule in the SEC. Spoiler alert, you absolutely can. I think this is an important week coming up for Kentucky. I think you can even argue an important couple games just in general. You're back at home at Rupp for 2 more games. You have got to get, certainly you've got to get the win later this week against Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the worst team in the SEC. And by the way, I think you want to prove to some people that things are different and that you are a different team. You know, a great place to start, destroy Oklahoma, okay? Because Oklahoma is in last place in the SEC. The team has quit. I think Porter Mosier's getting fired after this season. They just lost to Texas on Saturday in a game where they had an early lead. They lost to Arkansas earlier in the week in a game that they had the lead. And so you look at Oklahoma, that is a game that you absolutely have to win. And then, oh, by the way, you host Tennessee next Saturday. We'll see what that game turns into. The 8:30 Eastern game on ESPN. So you know Rupp Arena is going to be rocking. From there, you have a week off. You do play Florida on Valentine's Day. But I just bring it up with the way the schedule falls. If you come out the way you did against Arkansas, and if you play the way you did consistently throughout that game, you should beat Tennessee at home in an 8:30 Eastern tip-off at Rupp Arena. So congrats to Kentucky on the victory. A much deserved win. And I saw somebody in the chat say the sun is shining in Lexington today, and it sure feels like it. Listen, Mark Pope, year 1, he beat Duke. He beat Gonzaga. He beat Florida. We didn't know at the time was going to be the eventual national champions. I think this is as important of a win as he could get after what happened at Vandy on Tuesday, after you had Kentucky fans showing up to Bud Walton Arena with signs saying, "We miss you, Cal." If they lost this game, and I think if they lost it in the manner they lost to Vandy, where they just didn't show up ready to play, I don't know if you can recover from it this season, let alone at all. Now, it ain't something you got to worry about. You have to beat Oklahoma on Tuesday. I think it's a Tuesday game, maybe a Wednesday game, the midweek game. You have to beat Oklahoma. You have to build some momentum. And if you do that, guess what? There's a lot of season ahead and a lot of reason for excitement. Before we take a break, let's go ahead and switch gears and let's talk about the other side of this game. Final score again for people who will find this clip after the fact. Kentucky beats Arkansas 85-77. We just talked about the Kentucky side of things, but let's talk about Arkansas. It was a disappointing effort in what has become, I think personally, a disappointing stretch. I've been a Cal defender. Wasn't his best day, wasn't his team's best day. And listen, they're still a top 25 team. They're still in contention for an SEC title. I think this is a significant, important moment in this season. So let's go ahead and discuss the Arkansas side of things as they lose to Kentucky 85-77. First of all, in the same way that Kentucky fans have a gripe and a beef with the refereeing, Arkansas fans just the same. For people just joining us, we talked about it from the Kentucky side, the 3 technical fouls in 38 seconds. Wasn't any better for Arkansas. In total, as I mentioned a second ago, this was a game that was marred by the refs. 46 fouls called, 56 free throw attempts, 6 technical fouls. And in the same way that it swung in a positive direction for Kentucky after the 3 technicals, they used that to build momentum. Arkansas never really recovered from a stretch right before the under 8 timeout. That was the moment when they're called for the personal foul. Then Malik Ewan is called for a very questionable technical foul. Now, both sides were called for questionable technical fouls, okay? But in that game and in that moment, Kentucky got 4 foul shots. Then, as they were inbounding the ball, Nick Pringle called for a holding foul. So Kentucky took 6 free throws without taking a single dribble. A 63-63 tie game became 68-63. Arkansas could never recover, and Kentucky gets the win. Now, to be clear, and I want to be abundantly clear, the refs stunk for both sides. The refs, even as bad as they were, are not the reason that Arkansas lost the game. They're not the reason Kentucky won the game. Kentucky made more plays late. Kentucky gets the victory. As far as this game from the Arkansas side is concerned, I think it is a colossal disappointment. First of all, like I said, I've been a defender of Cal. His team wasn't ready to play. And we're going to talk about this as a theme for this team. But probably the worst 7-8 minute stretch of basketball to start a game all year. I would argue that, actually, I take that back. There's been a few starts to games where the team was not ready to play. We'll get into that. Georgia, Auburn specifically come to mind. But then you make your run, and it's just this weird thing where a couple things. One, can't make free throws. That's not on Cal. But 2, there's just bizarre stuff where, you send Malik Ewan to the foul line to take technical foul shots. It ended up being 2 points that you could have had that you did not get. That's bad coaching. A team that is built on physicality and toughness. John Calipari talked about it after the game. We got out-rebounded. They out-toughed us. They were meaner. They wanted it more. And so it does fall on John Calipari. But at the same time, what is very frustrating to me about this Arkansas team, you can see the immense talent. And what has become frustrating is the fact that you never know what team you're going to get. I'll give you a quick side story, okay? So probably about, it would have been about 2 weeks ago now, Arkansas destroyed Vanderbilt at home at Bud Walton Arena. And I remember I had an Arkansas fan, I think we mentioned it at the end, but we didn't spend a ton of time on the game. And an Arkansas fan said, how are you not going to talk about that? It's a top 25 win. We destroyed them. We're this, we're that. And I said, look, It was a great win. And Arkansas, to their credit, has great wins on the resume. The Texas Tech win, I know Texas Tech lost on Saturday, but that win keeps getting better every single week. By the way, Texas Tech plays Kansas in a few days, and it could even get better from there. The Texas Tech win is great. The Louisville win is going to hold up well. The Tennessee win is going to hold up well. This isn't to say that Arkansas is an abomination. What it is to say, though, is why I didn't talk about the Vandy game. I said it at the time. I said, can I get 3 great performances in a row before I start crowning Arkansas too much? And so I said it at the time. I said, they're too high, they're too low, they're too inconsistent, they're too this, they're too that. You don't know what you're getting from anyone in any single game, essentially outside of Darius Acuff. And Darius Acuff is unbelievable. But it doesn't change the fact that at the same time, Carter Knox, I don't know what's going on. Even Cal said after the game, like, we got to get him going. Nick Pringle, net negative on offense, doesn't really give you anything on defense, can't catch the ball in the post. He's not good enough. Malik Ewan, great on offense, not good enough on defense. The only other guy that I would say besides Darius Acuff that brings it is Billy Richmond, and I would argue Billy Richmond is the only guy that if you were grading Arkansas on Saturday that you would give like an A to. Billy Richmond was awesome. Billy Richmond kept them in the game. But that is the problem, and that is my frustration with Arkansas. Why didn't I talk about them after the Vandy game? It's because it was a great effort. But can we get that 2-3 games in a row? And this is my frustration with this Arkansas team. Unbelievable individual talent, but just think about the season. I think you can argue off the top of my head, minimum 4 games where this team, 4 big games, by the way, that the team just showed up not ready to play. Houston before Christmas break. And at the time, I sat there and I said, well, it's Houston. They're really good. And it's right before Christmas. And, sometimes Houston's going to make you look bad. Then there was the Auburn game that was the famous Coach Cal. We're not even going to watch the tape. We're going to burn it. Then the next road game, Georgia, you fall down. I believe the score was 24-4. You fell down a pretty significant margin in that game. And so this is now minimum 4th game where you showed up completely not ready to play. I would argue there were more. Remember, they were down at the half against LSU. They were down at the half against Oklahoma. And so you're really now talking about a stretch of about 6-7 games where you would say the effort to begin the game was an A++. And some of it is on coaching, but some of it is on the guys in the locker room as well. As a matter of fact, I went back and found this. Now, this is where not having producer Matt here sucks. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to play some sound from John Calipari after the Vanderbilt win, where he is very clearly frustrated, not with the effort in that game, but the effort overall of why can't we get this on a consistent basis? So we're going to play Vanderbilt sound. This was from about 2 weeks ago now, but I think it's noteworthy. Also, the framing of it isn't great, so I'm going to try to fix it in real time. Again, producer Matt, for people who don't know, lives in Nashville. He is still without power, but here is John Calipari. I got to put in my headphones. I'll hold the headphones, but I got to put in the headphones to hear what Cal says. But here is Coach Cal after the Vandy game, clearly frustrated, not with a great win, but that Arkansas isn't doing it consistently enough.
I don't know what to tell you. Why? Do we get arrogant, win a game, play well, and then go and just act like the other team's going to lay down? Are we looking for the easiest way? I don't want to come in every day ready to play. I just want it to – when you have a chance to being a special team and individually you have a chance to change your life forever, and you just I didn't feel like it today. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
That was John Calipari after the game against Vandy 3 weeks ago. And again, I apologize for the visuals. Our full-time producer, for anybody who does not watch us regularly, Matt, is in Nashville. That video isn't of the quality that we expect on this show, so I apologize. But what was of the quality that we expect, it was good sound from Coach Cal, because he said, you guys, You have a chance to change your family's lives. Some of you are going to be lottery picks. Some of you are going to be NBA draft picks. Some of you have a chance to play professionally. All of you basically have a chance to play professionally for a very long time. And you don't want to show up every single day ready to play. And so some of this is on Coach Cal. Wasn't ready to go, wasn't good enough, can't motivate the team, or is unable to motivate the team. But part of it is on the players too. It's not Coach Cal's fault that Arkansas shot 16 of 26 from the free throw line. That's not a Coach Cal thing. It is not a Coach Cal thing that Arkansas was out-rebounded in this game by 11, that Arkansas only had 26 total rebounds in this game. If you want to give credit to Kentucky for the effort, the energy, whatever, that's fine. But some of it is 100% on the effort, energy of Arkansas. And so it's disappointing. And to me, it's what I keep saying. I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but yes, a lot of it is on Cal. The team isn't ready to play. But I think this team has to look themselves in the mirror and say, like, what do we want this season to be? Do we just, and this is where, like, again, and this is where it's tough in this new era of guys coming and going and, like, who's a leader, and, you know, your best player is a freshman in Darius Acuff, and you got 2 or 3 transfers, whatever. Who is going to be the guy in that locker room that says, this is not good enough? This effort is not acceptable, but more importantly, we have a chance to do something special, and we are 1,000% playing down to our competition. Again, it's not just the Kentucky game. They were down by 4 against Oklahoma at halftime in their last game. Oklahoma is the worst team in the SEC. And again, I tried to defend it in the moment. I actually was kind of critical, and Arkansas fans were just like, hey, we missed a couple threes. We'll be better next game. No, this is a problem. Come out ready to play, foot on your throat. And in defense of Arkansas, this is what a lot of teams are dealing with, right? I've heard Rick Pitino question his team's effort. I've heard Nate Oates question his team's effort. That's another conversation. Dan Hurley, we talked about UConn. Why can they not consistently start well, even though they had a great game and a great effort on Saturday against Creighton? But it's something that a lot of teams are dealing with. But a lot of this is on John Calipari. But a lot of it is on those players as well. And I think it is a come to you-know-what moment, because guess what? You have a week off now. And so Monday will probably be a day off. Tuesday you get back to work. And it's like, I think those guys in that locker room got to say, who do we want to be? Do we want to show up every single day ready to play and compete for an SEC title? Or are we good being, they're 16-6 right now. You got, so that's 16-6, 22 games, 9 games left in the regular season. Are we good with going 5-4 down the stretch and being a 21-10 team and being a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament? Because this is a team that has a chance to do great things, but at some point they have to find it within themselves. So it's frustrating to me, and it goes back to what I said about the Vandy game. The reason I didn't talk about this team in some glowing terms is because we haven't seen the effort. I thought it was just a total disappointing effort. I thought at the end, the Trevin Brazil throwing Trent Noah, I thought that was a bad look, but it was just a disappointing effort overall. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. A lot of thoughts in the chat. The chat is just bananas right now. We're going to come back. We are going to talk about everything else. I'll tell you what. This Darryn Peterson story is one of the wildest things that we've ever seen. I do want to get to some questions in the chat. Drop your questions. We'll prioritize super chats. Obviously, quick break, come back, take your questions, talk a little Darryn Peterson, one of the wildest stories that I've ever seen. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Callie Puffs and CalliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Callie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan, and one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Callie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Callie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients, But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to Callipuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, Callipuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase, 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. Callipuffs.com gets you 15% off. Callipuffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but Callipuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Callipuffs. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. So KY Till I Die says Torres need a jumbo bag of Callipuffs. I'll tell you what, KY Till you die. Pam, we love you. We appreciate your support. You do need that jumbo bag of Callipuffs because they are a great partner. Again, promo code Torres gets you 15% off your any purchase of Callipuffs. A lot of Callipuffs talk. KY Till I Die says, Torres, that prediction was awful. We need Callipuffs. Yeah, it was. We'll come back and talk about the game in a second. Before we do, you know what I actually got to talk about? I got to thank our friends, and I got to thank our hotel and casino partners. I got to thank Circa Sportsbook and the Circa Casino. Okay, so obviously it's that time of year. You're looking for places to watch games, and when you do, you got to go ahead and find Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so Circa, biggest sports book in the world, okay? But here's the catch. For those of you who cannot make it to the Vegas Sportsbook, guess what? They have opened up a brand new sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs, the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. You can see it right there. All of the same great amenities of the Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. That is actually of the Mint. It actually is an exact replica of the Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. But listen, it's that time of year. You need a place to watch games. You need a place to sit there on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday night. You're going to want to go to the Mint, Circa Sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky. It's about 40 minutes from Nashville. It's right on that Tennessee-Kentucky border. Maybe you're in Nashville right now. You just need to get somewhere warm to charge your phone and watch these games. Check out the new Circa Sportsbook at the Mint, Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. By the way, if you are in the area, like I said, it's about 40 minutes from Nashville, 20 or so minutes from Bowling Green. We will be doing live shows during March from the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. You can email me, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. We'll send you all the details. We may have a special guest or two, so make sure to come join us at the brand new Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. Really quickly, let's get to some of the questions and comments in the chat because goodness gracious, is the chat humming. A lot to say. Let's see here. Turley says, did he give Kentucky props at all? Basically just said Arkansas sucked. No, I gave Kentucky props. Mark Pope came out ready to play, had his team ready to play, ready to focus. Turley enough. If you missed the front end of the show, you got to go back and check it out. We gave plenty of props to Kentucky. They were the better team. They deserved to win, and they overcame the refs with that, 3 technical fouls in 38 seconds. Let's take a look here at some of the other questions, some of the other comments. Let's see here. So many questions, so many comments. Trent Noah stopped the Big Pig invasion. Yeah, Trent Noah was great. Cal was outcoached, outplayed. Kentucky played bully ball, outclassed. Listen, I think even an Arkansas fan would agree with that. KY Till I Die, I don't disagree with it. There's a lot of truth to it. Kentucky, Mark Pope outcoached John Calipari. And here's my thing, and I said it a minute ago. I've never once said that Mark Pope wasn't doing a good job in the X's and O's. My issue was, why is the team falling down? Why are they not coming out ready to play? They came out ready to freaking play, and they deserve the win on Saturday. Now you got to keep the momentum going. John Robick with the Fernando Mendoza, let's flip and go. John Robick says, he did not say flipping, but that's okay. Let's see here. How about them Cats? Let's see here. All of us Cats fans knew as soon as Cal tightened up, made that pucker face, and started coaching, the game was over. Exact same script we've watched for 14 years. I thought Cal coached tight, but again, they missed 10 free throws. Some of it's on the players. Cal needed to be better. Whatever. Let's see here. A couple more, and then we'll get to the rest of a busy bit. I got to talk this, Darren. Does anyone care as much about this Darryn Peterson thing as I do? Because, like, we got to talk about that in half a second. Ethan brings up an important point. He says, Kentucky fans we were on a 5-game winning streak before Vandy. All the haters can eat crow. Like, that's probably my biggest takeaway for Kentucky, is that there is still plenty to be excited about. You have won 5 out of 6. The problem was that the sixth of 6 was just a complete no-show. Can you get a better effort out of the gate from the beginning? We will see. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's see here. A lot of comments. Great win for Kentucky. Nobody had Arkansas in their Final Four except Hogs fans. Torres did, but I also had Kentucky too. So let's see here. Let's see. Sam Tana says 12 games left in the regular season. There is a lot of time for both of these teams, but I think both of them have to show some degree of consistency. Snake Oil Shyster says, great job picking Kentucky, Torres. Sorry about that. I mean, I whiffed, but I would love to know. I mean, was there a group of people that picked Kentucky to win this game? You just lost by 40 at Vandy. You had 30-something points with like 6 minutes to go. Can you get this consistency from your team going forward? All right, really quickly, let's go ahead and get to some of the other stuff from Saturday. And I'll tell you what, by the way, and this is an important point that I think Pressure Wash from Sterling says, and he's right for both teams. Doug Shows wanted to be noticed. He was the head ref. I didn't spend a ton of time on the refs to open the show. Like, I don't know how these refs get picked. That was an abomination and an absolute embarrassment from the referees. All right, really quickly, I want to get to the rest of a busy week, busy Saturday in the world of sports as I knock off my frame there. And I do want to go ahead and get to the other big game that everybody was excited about. And it was just such a fascinating game from the perspective of the narratives that come out of it. So let's switch gears. Let's get to the other big game from Saturday. It was, of course, BYU at Kansas. And listen, we know why it was a big game. It wasn't just because it was a matchup of top 15 teams, but it was also a matchup of the projected top 2 picks in the 2026 NBA draft. AJ DeBonce at BYU, Darryn Peterson at Kansas. The big question, who would prove to be the number 1 pick in the draft? Well, for 20 minutes, there was no question it was Darryn Peterson. And then for the next 20 minutes, you got to see why there is a question as to why Darryn Peterson might not be, or should he be, the number 1 pick in the draft. A wild turn of events. Kansas gets the victory 90-82. And we got to talk about this. I think there's a glasses half full. We got to give Bill Self a ton of credit. But there's also the what the heck is this Darryn Peterson story? All right, so let's get into it. Kansas hosting BYU, okay? Kansas comes in on a 4-game winning streak. BYU comes in off the loss to Arizona. And it was crazy because coming into the game, you were curious how these two teams were going to play, whatever. And then immediately it's like, oh, this is the Darryn freaking Peterson show. For people who did not watch this game, and I'm assuming anybody who's listening to a college basketball pod on February 1st watched this game. Darryn Peterson, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, had one of the best offensive halves that I've been watching college basketball for 30 years, okay? One of the best offensive halves that any of us have ever seen. It wasn't just that he scored 18 points, but it was the manner in which he did it. The play early where he's ISO'd on AJ DeBonsa, looks him in the eye, drives right past him, goes up with his right, finishes with his left. It was MJ-esque. It just was. The three right in the dude's face. The dunk in the lane over 2 or 3 guys. And you're just like, this kid is so, and I keep using the word, he's so preposterously talented that it's not even fair to the rest of college basketball, okay? And by the way, I see people in the chat talking about all these other games. We open with Kentucky, Arkansas. If you missed it, you can go back and check it out if you're just joining us, okay? But to go back to Kansas and BYU, Darryn Peterson played one of the best halves of basketball that I have ever seen, period. And it wasn't just me. Jay Billis, I thought, said it best. He said, I've been covering college basketball for however long. He said, Darryn Peterson is the most gifted offensive player we have had in college basketball since Kevin Durant. I think there's something to that. And I was thinking, Darryn Peterson is in the short list of most talented basketball players that I have ever seen play college basketball, with Carmelo Anthony, with Kevin Durant, a couple others. There aren't many built like DP. Here's the problem, though, because the NBA draft was over. The number 1 pick conversation was over going into the half. Then the second half started, and you saw why there is a legitimate conversation. Darryn Peterson on a huge national stage after scoring 18 points in the first half, 0 points in the second half, and not only was it 0 points in the second half, he only played 3 minutes. He sat there with a wrap around both of his legs, and we're going to get to Darryn Peterson specifically in a minute, okay? But in that moment, you saw the issue with Darryn Peterson. A 20-point lead for Kansas at the half got down to about 4 with about 1:27 left. Kansas holds on, all as Darryn Peterson sits on the sideline, not playing and not even attempting to play. So let's talk about it. And listen, if you're a Kansas fan tuning in, we're going to be glasses half full in a second, because I do think there's positives. Bill Self, I think, is doing as good of a job as he's won so many Big 12 titles. I think this is his best coaching job. We're going to explain it in a second. But we have to talk about this Darryn Peterson situation, because I was thinking about this. There's been, even backtrack, there's been so many conversations about what's going on. Early in the year, it was a hamstring, listed as a hamstring. Then it was cramps. Then we said that, he sprained his ankle in the Colorado game. Or was it the game before Colorado? I can't remember. Then he comes back. Saturday, it was cramps, whatever, okay? And I have been defensive of Darryn Peterson. I've said I don't think he's faking an injury. I don't think he's whatever. I do think that he's probably making sure that he's 100%. And I said it back in December with the NC State game. I said, hamstring injuries, because at the time we thought it was a hamstring. Hamstring injuries, if you come back too fast, you're going to re-aggravate it, or worse, you're going to hurt something else. You're going to twist an ankle because you're limping on your bad hamstring, or even worse. I don't even want to get into worse hypotheticals than that. I will say that was my stance coming into Saturday. I don't know that I believe that anymore. And I don't know how you can argue that it is anything other than the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, load managing during his college basketball career. Okay. And people say that's too aggressive. That's too this, that's too that. No, we need to call it out, because if we do not call it out, it will never be addressed. Okay. He's not meeting with the media, but at some point he's going to have to answer to NBA teams. He's going to have to go to the NBA combine. And we need to, as a community, say this. If you're really hurt, the explanations aren't good enough, right? It's easy to forget this. Paolo Banchero had cramps early in his time at Duke, missed 2 or 3, 3 big games. He had to leave games because he was cramping up. Okay. At the same time, Paolo figured it out because he wanted to be on the court. And so I bring it up with Darryn Peterson because here's why I came to the conclusion that it can be nothing other than load managing on Saturday and really all season long. It is because as his team blew a 20-point lead, he's sitting there with a heating pad on each leg. Here's the thing. We've all watched sports for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. If somebody is really hurt, what do they do? And especially if muscles are tightening, if there's a hamstring issue, if there's cramps, if there's whatever, what do? You stretch. What do? You get on a stationary bike. What do? You move around. But you know what you also do? You go stir crazy on the bench. And it was funny because when Darryn Peterson clearly wasn't coming back in, I tweeted out, like, you know what? This is why there is a conversation about the number 1 overall pick. And I had people say, well, this kind of proves how valuable he is. I said, no, it doesn't. Because here's the thing. Whatever you think about A.J. Debonsa, whatever you think about Cam Boozer, whatever you think about Darius Acuff, Caleb Wilson, Kingston Flemings, if they were on the bench and their team was in the midst of blowing a 20-point lead, they would have to be in a full body cast not to get back on the court. Go back to the Kentucky-Arkansas game for half a second. Darius Acuff missed a layup. You would have thought the world ended. Missed a layup in the first half. And it bothered him the rest of the game. And so I'm not saying Darryn Peterson is a bad kid. What I am saying is whoever is advising him, it is so obvious that there is no intention other than to play him the absolute minimum to keep him in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick and probably get him to the number 1 overall pick. So it is frustrating and it is embarrassing for the entire Peterson camp. And we need to call it out as a basketball community, because if we don't, maybe it won't be addressed, right? But I see everybody on social media, I have to use my voice to speak out about this. Well, I'm using my voice to speak out about Darryn Peterson load managing in college basketball, okay? Same time, let me also say this. Let me be glasses half full. I think Bill Self is doing as good of a coaching job as he has done at Kansas. This is a guy who's won multiple national championships, 20-plus Big 12 titles between the conference tournament and the regular season. I think for most of the 2000s, he's been the best coach in college basketball. You know, maybe the best talent developer in college basketball. Some of the guys that he's put into the NBA, Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji, you know, these were not highly rated guys. Bill Self famously, you know, his best teams usually don't have the one-and-done type talent, okay? But I think this is his best coaching job for a very simple reason. It is because he is basically coaching 2 completely different teams in real time. 2 completely different teams in real time. What do I mean by that? What I mean is he has the full team that he put together in the spring. He has Darryn Peterson, and he has a lot of great pieces around him. Melvin Council is a great number 2 that can handle the ball, that can make plays, that can get others involved. Trey White is kind of that emotional leader, physical, tough in the paint. Flory Badunga, elite rim protector. Bryson Tiller, as we saw on Saturday against BYU, elite stretch big man. And all these pieces fit, and they play well together and whatever. And that's one team that Bill Self has. Then you have the completely other team when Darryn Peterson just decides that he isn't playing. And that is the one where all of a sudden now Melvin Council has to go from the number 2 making plays to I got to get 30 or we're going to lose. And Flory Badunga has to take on a bigger role, and Trey White can't just be the emotional glue guy, energy guy. And so this is why Bill Self is doing as good of a job as he's ever done, because he's coaching 2 different teams in real time. And usually when stuff like this happens, usually there's like an injury and you got to start over, right? Take Kentucky. There was the before Jalen Lowe. Now they just have a completely different team, and it's on Mark Pope to adjust. And obviously on Saturday, he did a great job. But imagine having an injured player who is available to start games, usually not available to end games, pulls himself out, puts himself back in. You never know when you're going to get 8 minutes from him, 28 minutes from him, or 0 minutes from him. It really feels Like, it just depends on a minute-to-minute basis. And so you have to give Bill Self credit because he's dealing with all this crap in real time. I give him credit for not outing the kid. I know you want to, the argument is, well, the agent's going to have players in the future. Bill Self is in his 60s. Whoa, what does Bill Self care? He's got what, maximum 2 to 3 years left? If I'm Bill Self, I'm like, screw this kid. I'm calling out the agent and saying, like, you ain't playing him, we ain't playing him. And I'm going to every NBA team and saying that this is a disaster. I'm just saying what I would do. Bill Self is clearly a better man than me. Because I don't know how you can accept this as okay. So credit Bill Self. And the one thing I will say about Bill Self, if you go back to the spring, guys like me were critical. They really didn't land any big names in the portal. And Bill Self was just adamant, like, guys, I'm building around the potential number one pick. I'm getting pieces. I'm not trying to get superstars. I've done that the last 2 years with Hunter Dickinson and AJ Storr. It hasn't worked out. Well, I do give him credit because he said from the beginning, I like the pieces around Darryn Peterson. And when they're healthy and when he's healthy, they're a top 10 team in college basketball. I go back to the Duke game. They played Duke in the Champions Classic. And I remember saying at the time, I said, if they ever get Darryn Peterson healthy, this is a national championship contender. Because all the pieces fit. Bryson Tiller's a great stretch five. Flory Badunga's great at what he does. Melvin Council's really good. Just the big question is, are you ever going to get a fully healthy Darryn Peterson? And like I said, the best thing we can do is call out Darryn Peterson because it's absolute crap. Kansas fans, I don't know how you're dealing with it. You're a better man than I am because I would be pissed off. Really quickly, I don't want to spend a ton of time on BYU, but BYU falls in this game, final score 90-82. And BYU is kind of a very interesting team. First of all, I'm not going to get into it too in depth. AJ DeBonsa, there is a clear split between his stats against really good teams and not really good teams. Okay, he's still averaging 23 a game, but if you go back and look, was 6 of 24 against Arizona the other night, was 6 of 17 in the loss to TCU, was 6 of 12 at Kansas. So we're doing some math here. That's 12 of 36. That's 18 of 39 of 59. Is that right? 18 of 59? I don't know. I'm not great at math off the top of my head. What I will say is there's some splits. But BYU's in a really interesting position because you look at their resume, they have a lot of very nice wins. Clemson on a neutral, Miami on a neutral, Wisconsin on a neutral, and they've taken care of the teams that they're supposed to in the Big 12. I think the bigger issue is they really don't have any great wins so far this season. And listen, doesn't mean anything other than what your ceiling can be as a seed if you don't start winning some of these games. But, I think BYU is in this predicament right now where, you're really good against good teams. And by the way, I'm not criticizing. You lost by 3 to the number 1 team in the country. You lost by 2 to the number 2 team in the country in UConn. This isn't a criticism. It's just the reality of at some point you do have to get that signature win. And if you're just a team that is really good but doesn't have great wins, it's going to put a cap on what your seed is. Capping your seed makes it harder to make a run once you get to the tournament, all of that. So for BYU, the good news is, there's still plenty of time. They play Houston next Saturday at home, so we'll see if they can get back on track. Still have a trip to Arizona, Iowa State, and Texas Tech at home. There's still plenty of chances to get those signature wins, but they do have to start getting them. I will say, I said this after the Arizona game. By the way, Richie Saunders was obviously incredible, 33 points. But I said it after the Arizona game is I really do think that from the BYU perspective, I just don't know if they have enough depth. For people who don't follow BYU on a day-to-day basis, they have 3 guys that were supposed to be part of their rotation that are all injured. Dawson Baker was their 6th man. He's out for the year. Nate Pickens was kind of this 3-and-D guy that would have been their 7th or 8th guy. He is out for the year. And they have a 3rd guy who would have contributed in some capacity. And you just look at this team. I just don't know if they have enough around AJ Ritchie and Rob Wright, where if those three don't have great games, I just don't know like what you can realistically expect from this team. Because again, they have three guys that can beat you, but if they're not all great, we have seen very quickly that the season can kind of sorry, give me one sec here. Okay, cool. What we've seen is if all three aren't great against great teams that have 4 or 5 guys that can beat you, it makes it really tough. So BYU does not get the win. I think there's hope. Kevin Young after the game basically did say, like, look, man, I'm tired of being called the best second half team in college basketball. We need to put together complete games. That's another issue, by the way, with BYU. These big deficits against UConn, against Clemson in a game that they won, by the way, against Arizona, and again against Kansas. You can't keep falling down 20-plus points. You got to start out better. BYU does not get the win. Really quickly, I do want to get to a couple other results. I do see some commentary on the Darryn Peterson stuff, so we'll get to that in a minute. Tell you what, we'll take one more break. We'll come back. I do want to get to some of the other comments and questions and just a couple other games in general. Quick break. We will be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, let's be real. Nothing ages you faster this time of year than following your favorite college football team. The recruiting, transfer portal, NIL, maybe you had a coaching change, maybe you're even getting ready for a postseason game. Well, unless you're Notre Dame, another conversation for another day. But it leaves wrinkles and does a number on a man's face. That's why, folks, I use Tiege Hanley. Yes, I've been telling you about Tiege Hanley. I started using it about a month ago now, and I'll tell you what, I look better and my skin feels better even during this hectic time of year. Among my favorite products, the Super Serum and Eye Serum, they've been legit game changers. Fine lines, softer. Under eye bags, way less brutal. Yeah, I might be up all hours of the night watching all sorts of games, but with Tiege Hanley, you'd never know it. What I love about Tiege, everything they make is high quality and designed for us guys. They send you exactly what you need each month, so you don't have to wander around a store pretending that you know what all these labels mean. By the way, ladies, this time of year, this makes the perfect gift for the fella in your life who needs help, your dad, your friend, your coworker, whoever looks like he might have a couple wrinkles rolling in from watching too much film in the middle of the night. Right now, this is what I love about Tiege. They're giving listeners of the Aaron Torres pod a special offer, 40% off your first box plus a free $20 gift. That's an insane deal for how high these quality products are. All you got to do is just click that link below. That's 40% off your first box plus a $20 free gift. An insane offer. Just click the link below. Football might drain you emotionally, but Tiege keeps you looking really good. Even as, again, you're breaking down film late at night. You're not a coach, but you know what? Tiege Hanley's going to make you look good anyway. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Do want to go ahead and wrap with a couple other things before we get to them. We will get to the chat. We appreciate everybody tuning in on a Sunday. By the way, next weekend is Super Bowl Sunday. We'll go early again, probably about noon Eastern. Then after that, we're probably going to do the nighttime shows. I just think even today, there's so much college basketball on Sundays going forward that it probably makes sense to do the show about 6 Eastern or so. So make sure that you are locked in. Couple things here as we start to get out of here. Let's a couple comments. By the way, I'm getting roasted for my Darryn Peterson takes on Twitter. I think he's load managing. I'm sorry. I just think that he is. Whatever. I stand by what I said. Let's see here. There was a couple Darryn Peterson. Here you go. He said, kids are saving their legs for 200+ million future contracts, as I would want my son to do as well. Well, here's the question. Why can Darryn Peterson save his legs, but not Darius Acuff, but not AJ DeBonsa? And here's the thing. I don't think it's a guarantee that he goes number one. There's already splits on who should actually go number one. And one of two things is going to happen at the NBA draft combine. Either Darryn Peterson is going to have to say, yeah, I was kind of hurt all year and cramped up all year, and I can't explain why. Or he's going to have to say that I load managed. And I don't think it's going to mean that he falls from the first pick to the 11th pick, but it's millions of dollars if he falls from the first pick to the third pick, even the first pick to the second pick. And then, oh, by the way, to get that $200 million contract, you got to play in games. So he's incredibly talented, but I'm sorry, I don't feel bad saying what I said. He's load managing. He just is. We'll see if it gets better. Listen, to be clear, I don't think that he should be playing if he's not healthy, but I also think what I saw Saturday and what I've seen in a bunch of games, a guy that's just cramping up, you don't just sit there with a heating pad on. You hydrate. You ride a stationary bike. Go back to when Paolo Banchero was at Duke. The Gonzaga game, which I was at in Vegas, the Kentucky game, he cramped up. What is he doing? Fluids, stretching, whatever. If that's the issue, you're not just sitting there while your team blows a 20-point lead. Let's take a look at any others. A lot of Kentucky talk here. Let's see here. A lot of Arkansas stuff. Arkansas, Kentucky. We're talking about what the Kentucky basketball roster could look like in 2026. Doug does bring up Tyron Stokes was at the Kansas game. That's probably worth noting at some point later in the week. We'll talk about it. Stokes to Kansas. Turtley says, is that going to happen? We will discuss that. Let's see here. Boozer, listen, I think Boozer may end up being the number one overall pick when it's said and done. I don't think that's crazy. I mean, all the dude does is get like 26 and 12 every game. And I do think at some point, is that enough production to make it justifiable? Let's see here. Torres, where's Matt? Is he back? Producer Matt is in Nashville. You know, as far as I know, he still doesn't have power. I haven't talked to him since last week. He texted me last Sunday morning. That was after which games? The Kentucky beat somebody to Ole Miss for their fifth straight game. So Matt has been out since last Sunday. That's why the visuals are not quite as good as they normally are. You know, we're hoping to have him back soon, but right now he has no power. Been 8 days now, so I hope he's okay, but I have not heard from him. I texted him on Friday, have not heard back. Some ways, you know, as a boss, not very happy about that, but, you know, it is what it is. And by the way, to anybody in Nashville, I hope you guys are all doing okay, because it's tough. By the way, Michael Gray says Boozer should be the number one overall pick. I think there's something to it. Listen, I think it's going to depend on the team, but you're telling me a dude that just consistently gets 20, and Cam Boozer's doing it against the best front courts in college basketball. Alex Condon in the Florida front court, which has probably three guys that are going to get drafted this year with Chinyelu, Condon, and Tommy Hawk. Did it against Arkansas. Did it against Michigan State. He's done it against everybody. I think there's at least a conversation. Darius Acuff, first point guard off the board. We will see. All right, I'll tell you what. We're just going to get out of here. A couple other results before we go. It's funny. I was very critical of UConn last week. I had some of you like, Torres, I haven't really heard you go off on UConn like that. Well, first of all, I always tell people, like, I don't play favorites. If you're not living up to expectations, I'm going to say it. Bring it up because UConn, I mentioned it on the was the Wednesday show. In their last 6 games, 5 wins by double figures, all against teams essentially except for Villanova that are not going to make the tournament. Barely survived at home against Providence. On Saturday, they go to a place that has kind of been a house of horrors for them, which was Creighton. Had lost 3 of their last 4 there. Well, including both national championship seasons, by the way. Bring it up. They weren't losing Saturday night. Final score 85-58. If you're a UConn fan, you just got to feel good. Listen. Complete effort from UConn. All 5 starters in double figures. Oh, by the way, on top of that, 16 3-pointers. You out-rebounded them. This was the UConn team that you want to see if you're a UConn fan. I think more importantly, UConn had a double-digit lead at halftime, and it got bigger after the half, not smaller. That's been UConn's problem. They can you go back to the Seton Hall game a few weeks ago, they were up 12, 14, 15 points in the first half, and then all of a sudden it's a 1-2 point game with a couple minutes to go. So UConn needed that win. We'll see if it translates. They still play a lot of big games left on the schedule. Xavier at home on Tuesday, and then Friday night, for people who have not looked so far ahead on the schedule, Patino versus UConn, St. John's versus UConn at Madison Square Garden. Get excited. Really quickly, the only other results of note, one, Arizona keeps rolling. They beat Arizona State 87-74. This was a pretty close game until it wasn't. All 5 starters in double figures. Arizona 22-0. This is a team, best start in school history. So you think about all the great Arizona teams under Lute Olson. Tommy Lloyd, by the way, had a great quote. He said, listen, I didn't get to know Lute Olson, but I'm grateful for what he did here. And he said, I'm grateful for what Sean Miller left me here. Tommy Lloyd's doing incredible things, 22-0. I'll tell you what, though, they have the week off, and then they play Oklahoma State next Saturday, and then it's game on. The schedule gets much tougher. After the Oklahoma State game, here is the schedule. At Kansas on a big Monday, then Texas Tech at home, BYU at home, at Houston, at Baylor, Kansas at home, at Iowa State at home. So let me do some math here. I know BYU is probably going to fall in the polls, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games, 6 of those games will be against top 15 teams. I would argue Baylor is a tournament team, even though they might not have the resume right now. Oh my goodness, what a stretch for Arizona. A couple other results. Louisville finally figures it out. They beat SMU, blow them out in the second half. They needed a game like that. Carolina now on a 3-game winning streak after that debacle on the West Coast. They play Syracuse at home. Then they get Duke at home next Saturday. So the first Duke-Carolina game is next Saturday. By the way, speaking of the ACC, Duke rolls. And it is worth noting, NC State, another win, 16-6 overall, 5-0 in the ACC. Will Wade, listen, it's hard to say he should be ACC Coach of the Year because there's a lot of guys doing great things in that league. But Duke is 9-0 in that league. Clemson is 8-1. Then it is Virginia and NC State tied at 16-6, 7-2 overall. NC State may be getting the double. Remember, NC State 2 years ago made a Final Four after playing in the 15 versus 16 game in the ACC tournament. I believe that was against Kenny Payne and the Louisville Cardinals. They might get the double bye at the ACC tournament. I'm kind of bummed. I was supposed to get down to Raleigh here later this month in February. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate everybody. Monster audience on a Sunday afternoon. We will probably start going Sunday nights going forward after the Super Bowl, but we're going to go ahead and get out of here. If you're not subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, please make sure to do so. Just click that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. We're going live. We'll probably be back Tuesday morning, so make sure those notifications are on. Make sure to, if you're listening on podcast, subscribe, Apple, Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review, and we got to go. Thank you to our partners, Circa Sportsbook. Again, if you're in Kentucky, we will be there in March. Hit me up. Let me know. DM me. Email me. Aaron Torres podcast questions @gmail.com if you want to come to our event. They have a special guest there. Also, thank you to SeatGeek. $20 off your first purchase with code Torres. And Callie Puffs, 15% off your total purchase when you use code Torres. Everybody, I got to run. Kentucky Outdoor Life. I love when you chime in. He says, good shit, man. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Also, Terry says, thanks, Aaron. Good times. And Darren over in Australia. Producer Matt over here on the Gold Coast. He might be on vacation. It might just be pulling a fast one, but we'll see what happens. I think he's in Nashville. I hope he's doing okay. Tell you what, we'll be back Tuesday morning. Turn on those notifications. We're going to rock and roll. By the way, tonight, I will come back, drop my updated top 10. Remember, we have a top 10 matchup today with Nebraska and Illinois. So I'll give my top 10 here in a couple hours. Gotta go. Shout out to Torque Craig, Rachel, who hates my voice, JJ Reddick, UF head, unblock me.